and crossing Dakota Weirs, and I'll also be giving the opening statement.
All right.
Good afternoon. I am Abriana Gonzalez from Team Lemongrass on the defense side. I am representing Lush Fertilizer, and I will be direct examining Blake Doncourt and cross-examining Carson Durst.
And your witnesses.
I am Kane Marks, and I will be playing Blake Doncourt today.
All right.
My name is Gregory Booker, and I'm going to be playing Skylar Weirs.
And last.
My name is Abby Anthony, and I will be playing Devin Williams.
Dr. Devin Williams. All right. And your timekeeper? Do we have a lemongrass timekeeper?
Oops. My name
There-
is Bailey Stewart, and I'm timekeeper on the defense side.
What was your name again? I'm sorry.
Bailey Stewart.
Bailey Stewart. All right. All right. So let me just ask the team members. Well, let's see. Let's just make sure they know the jurors' names so that they can compare this. I have Miss Riley, Mr. Hogg, Miss Gray, and who is the fourth juror?
That's me, Judge Brian Connors.
Mr. Connors? All right, thank you. All right, so do any of the team members fully and truly conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? If so, please say I do.
I do.
And witnesses? We get a little feedback there. And witness, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. All right. With that, unless, I guess, are we, Sanita, are we missing anything at this point before we get started?
I don't believe so. Jurors, if you'd like to keep your cameras on, you can. It's up to you, but mainly we need the two attorneys. We need Judge Lynch to keep his camera on. And anybody who's not speaking, please mute yourself. Yes, I think that's it.
Okay. So I missed which attorney on Midarn Grass is going to be doing the opening. I apologize.
Your Honor, before we start opening statements, we have a few preliminary matters.
All right.
We have 5 issues. First off, we ask that co-counsel may be allowed to share screen share exhibits.
So are you guys in the same space?
Yes, we are, Your Honor. We just ask that they be allowed to screen share on our behalf.
All right.
So,
and I'm not aware of any rule prohibiting that.
yes, if you want to do that, you can. All the jurors have the exhibits on their own screens. So we've tried to make that as easy as possible. So if you don't screen share, you can also just refer to which exhibit you're talking about.
Thank you. We'd also like to be able to pause the clock for any technological issues.
So my understanding is that we can do that for up to 15 minutes. So if things go really afoul, we might run into a problem. But we'll roll with it. So, and I realize that you've all designed your presentations for specific periods of time. So we will try to allot that much to you.
Yes, Your Honor. Along with that, the jury has all instructions and stipulated facts.
I believe they do.
And the court has any previous rulings on the matter.
I do have the previous rulings on the matter. Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. That includes plaintiff's preliminary matters.
Okay. Any from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. We ask that the same demands that the plaintiff asked for, that it also goes on the defense side as well if opposing counsel does not object to it.
Okay. We should all be playing by the same rules. All right. Anything else that I've overlooked that we should address before opening statements? All right. Ms. Madden, were you going to do the opening statement as well? Oh, actually, I see here that was Ms. Chamberlain, isn't it?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Are you ready to begin your opening statement?
Yes, and before I begin, I just would like to check if my timekeeper is ready.
I was going to do the same. I just want to make sure the timers are ready. So that's Mr. Reyes and then Ms. Stewart. Timekeepers ready?
Am I good to begin, Your Honor?
You may proceed.
Profits over people. Ladies and gentlemen, you are here today because of Lush Fertilizer and their persistent need to put their own profits over the health and wellness of their people. Young, smart, talented people like Dakota Wires. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear from Dakota Wires herself today. Dakota is a 20-year-old woman now enduring the detrimental effects of cancer, most specifically non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Cancer has taken so much away from Dakota, but one of the largest things that has taken away is her ability to play piano. Her ability to play piano was not only her passion and dream, but her connection to her late grandfather. Now, Dakota will tell you how she was offered a full ride scholarship to Juilliard, but was unable to accept due to the effects of her cancer. This will show you how Lush continues to put their own profits over their people. Now, Lush, like its name suggests, makes fertilizer. They have this new, incredible, game-changing fertilizer that includes an ingredient called Drufo. Drufo is a chemical bonding agent, and today, ladies and gentlemen, Lush is going to try to tell you how it couldn't be any better. But ladies and gentlemen, you will hear today how it is a proven carcinogen. You will hear the story of Dakota Wires and Lush Fertilizer through 6 witnesses today, 3 from plaintiff and 3 from defense. First, plaintiff will call our 3 witnesses, Dr. Casey Rogers, Carson Durst, and finally, Dakota Wires. Dr. Casey Rogers is a current professor in horticulture and entomology at the University of California, Berkeley. He will tell you of all of his copious amounts of research and reports on Drufo, but how ultimately it is a proven carcinogen. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Casey Rogers will show you how Lush continues to put their own profits over their people. Next, Carson Durst will be called to the stand. Carson Durst will tell you of their personal relationship with Blake Doncourt and how it quickly deteriorated after they started working at Lush. Ladies and gentlemen, Carson Durst will show you how Lush continues to put their own profits over the health and wellness of their people through not baking Drufo. Last, Dakota Wires will be called to the stand. Dakota will tell you how she worked at Haven Landscaping for a number of years and used Lush Fertilizer all throughout these years. Dakota will tell you her heart-wrenching story of lost opportunities due to Lush's persistent need to put their own profits over the health and wellness of their people. Next, defense will call their 3 witnesses, Dr. Devin Williams, Blake Doncourt, and Skylar Wires. Dr. Devin Williams will tell you of their research and reports on Drufo, but ladies and gentlemen, ultimately, Dr. Devin Williams will tell you how Drufo is a proven carcinogen. Next, Skylar Wires will be called. Skylar, Dakota's estranged twin, will show you how there's possible bias in today's case as they are going against their own twin. Skylar will also tell you of their research on Drufo, but ladies and gentlemen, they only researched Drufo for 1 year. Next, Blake Doncourt will be called. Blake Doncourt is the current CEO of Lush Fertilizer. They will tell you how they never heard of any concerns about Drufo in their company, but ladies and gentlemen, they will admit to risks. Ladies and gentlemen, the plaintiff has to prove to you by the preponderance of the evidence that Lush Fertilizer is negligent, and that is what we are here to do. We ask you to see how Lush Fertilizer continues to put their own profits over their people and give Dakota the helping hand they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, for opening on lemongrass, I believe that's Ms. Cobb.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You may proceed when ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Careless consumers can cause cancer. Dakota Weirs has developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma as a result of his careless use of Lush Fertilizer. This diagnosis is a tragic result, but ultimately, this is not what this case is about. Drufo is a safe product of Lush Fertilizer. If used properly, was used in a way that did not fit the safety warnings and guidelines on the packaging. Dakota was a careless user of Lush Fertilizer. His carelessness of not wearing protective gear and protecting himself while working has caused damage to his everyday life. His carelessness of not following the user safety recommendations stated directly on the packaging. Lush Fertilizer's product is a safe product that does not cause diseases. Careless consumers can cause cancer. May it please the court, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, my name is Callista Cobb, and I'm here on the behalf of the defendant, Lush Fertilizer. Lush Fertilizer is being brought here today on the claims that from Dakota Weirs that their disease, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, was caused by Lush product. They have claimed that Lush product contains a chemical bonding agent. Dakota is claiming that Drufo can cause cancer. However, as we move through today's case, you will hear that Drufo is a safe product. Dakota will try to prove that Drufo causes cancer, and he must prove that claim by the preponderance of evidence, meaning Dakota Weirs must prove that it is more likely than not that Lush Fertilizer's product caused his cancer. This is the burden they cannot meet. If the plaintiff is unable to meet the preponderance on either side of the case today, that you must reject the claim in all. As Dakota Weirs bears the burden, you're going to hear from their first witness. We anticipate you're hearing from Dr. Casey Rogers, Carson Durst, and Dakota Weirs. When you hear their testimony, we are going to ask that you carefully consider their credibility. I anticipate that you're going to hear that Dr. Rogers can have a financial and professional reputation loss. If the case resolves in Lush favor, then his financial and professional reputation could be lost. Next, I anticipate the plaintiff will present Carson Durst, a disgruntled former employee of Lush Fertilizer. You're going to hear that Carson Durst has violated a non-disclosure agreement. The last witness I anticipate the plaintiff will present is Dakota Weirs, a careless user of Lush Fertilizer. We ask you to keep all of these in mind as these witnesses testify and decide if these witnesses are credible. The defense will present the following evidence that shows Lush Fertilizer is not responsible for Dakota Weirs' diagnosis. You'll hear that there is a non-disclosure agreement between Carson Durst and Lush Fertilizer. You will be shown that there is a user safety recommendations that Dakota has failed to follow. You will also hear from these three witnesses, Blake Doncourt, Skylar Weirs, and Dr. Devin Williams. Blake Doncourt, CEO of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated, will tell you that Lush's aim is to create a safe product for the environment. Skylar Weirs is a fraternal twin of Dakota Weirs. Skylar Weirs is a scholarly researcher who will provide valid resources and information on how safe Drufo is. Dr. Devin Williams, the lead toxicology researcher and developer at the labs of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated, We'll explain to you that Drufo is a safe product and how Lush works to be an environmentally responsible company. Throughout these testimonies, my team will prove that Lush Fertilizer is not at fault for the cause of Dakota Weirs' cancer. And at the end of this trial, my co-counsel, Michaela Sanchez-Minguia, will come before you and review the testimony and evidence you have received in this case. Following that review, we will be asking that you find Lush Fertilizer is not liable for any damages because careless consumers can cause cancer.
All right, thank you. And is the plaintiff ready to call their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
And I'm sorry, am I supposed to swear Mr. Rogers in?
I'm not sure, Your Honor.
I don't think so, because
Yeah.
we did it in the group thing, so I think we're okay. Sorry, and I didn't mean to take up your time. You may proceed.
No worries, Your Honor. I just want to confirm before I start that my timekeepers are ready.
Yep, I'm seeing yours already. Okay.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell the last for the record.
My name is Dr. Casey Rogers, Rogers.
Who are you, Dr. Casey Rogers?
Well, that's a bit of a deep question to ask. I think first and foremost, I would describe myself as curious. I love looking through data. I've definitely devoted my life to finding out information.
Tell me about your educational background first.
Well, I started off with a bachelor's of science in agriculture and chemistry. From that point, I moved on. I worked very hard to get my PhD in the areas of horticulture and entomology.
And do you still work in that field?
I do, in fact. I still teach classes on that same subject within the area of the University of California, Berkeley. And I'm also currently working within a toxicology and chemistry lab to continue working into that chemistry area.
And what's your work history like?
Well, for a while after school, I was hired to work for a confidential company in which I would review data and look through different pieces of studies and information. And I would compile reports, make conclusions based off of that, and submit them to my supervisors as best as I could.
And you talked a little bit about research. What are some of your research interests?
Well, for a period of many years now, I've been fascinated by the area of toxicology, the impact of chemicals on human beings, most notably the prolonged exposure to toxicants.
Okay, anything else?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, under Rule 702, I ask that Dr. Casey Rogers be allowed in as an expert witness in chemistry, agriculture, metabolism of toxins, as well as prolonged exposure to chemicals.
Did the defense want to be heard on that at all?
No objection, Your Honor.
Then the court will recognize the witness as an expert as requested.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's move on. Tell me some more about the specific studies that you've done.
Well, for a long period of time, I looked through different studies that occurred in the EU and elsewhere in the world, and I put those together in reviews. But more recently, a couple years ago, I started a very long-term study where I tangibly looked at the impact of Drufo on a variety of different groups of people.
And let's back up a little bit. What is Drufo?
Well, it's a chemical bonding agent that's used in every single product that Lush makes. And that chemical bonding agent mostly keeps the product fresh over long periods of time and preserved.
Thank you. What originally piqued your interest in Drufo?
Well, as soon as it came on the market originally, I worried that it hadn't had sufficient testing, that there wasn't adequate information to learn about its toxicology prospects or what effect it could have on human beings. And years after that, my interest was still being piqued by different people's reports on the subject.
Can you talk to me more about this study that you've done on Drufo?
Absolutely, I can. It's a study where I compared farm workers or people who would be using the product daily to those who would only use it occasionally, like a gardener, to those who would never be using Drufo as a control group. And throughout this time, I monitored them for different effects, positive or negative. And most notably, we found a massive increase and the incidences of cancer within the third group, the one exposed to it daily, they were 10 times more likely than our control group to contract cancer, specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and twice as likely as our group that was only occasionally exposed to the product.
So what does this tell us generally about Drufo as a product?
Well, there's a vast amount of scientific evidence that demonstrates that Drufo has a heavy correlation with cancer. I think that shows very heavily that Dakota Wires cancer in specific has been caused by that exposure to Drufo.
Thank you. And did you do any research prior to this case today?
Absolutely, I did. Obviously, I looked through all the evidence that was material to the case, everything you would find submitted. In addition, I looked through all of Dakota Wire's medical records, work history, just anything that could help me understand what's going on better.
So I know you already highlighted this a little bit, but from all of your knowledge, can you reiterate what you concluded about Drufo and Dakota?
Dakota was similar to the third group that I studied during my study, had a daily exposure to the product, and similarly, that study found a heavy correlation between cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma specifically, and Drufo. All of the chemical evidence shows that Dakota Wires cancer is likely to be caused by exposure to Drufo.
And going off of that, how can a person be exposed to Drufo?
Well, there's two main routes of exposure. For one, can get in through inhalation, travel into the respiratory system, seep into the bloodstream, and then it's all the way around your body. In addition, it can be exposed to it through absorption. You could touch the product and have it seep into the bloodstream through that.
So what would you recommend to prevent this harmful exposure to Drufo?
First and foremost, the product needs to be taken off the market. The studies show overwhelmingly that it's not safe. And until it can be made safe, it must not be available to consumers who have this heavy of a risk of damage because of it. However, in the event that it's not taken off the market, I should inform anyone who could work with Lush that they should always wear a respirator and long clothing to protect themselves from absorption of the product.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you. And just so I know the jurors are scoring the right person, you are Miss Madden.
I'm Rachel Yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
All right. That's why we do that. All right. Is the defense ready for cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you are Ms. Sanchez Magia.
Yes.
All right. You may proceed when the timers are ready. The timer's ready. Okay, you may proceed.
Isn't it true that you've never published a scientific journal on the study you conducted on Drufo?
Well, that's actually fascinating. You know, the matter of the way that different studies get passed through peer reviewing, it's a process that can take many, many years, especially publishing. You know, some magazines don't like studies that seem, too thorough or having too much data. And some magazines.
I ask that you refrain to yes and no answers only.
I'll try.
So is that a yes or a no to the last question?
What question is that?
That it's true that you never published a scientific journal on the study that you conducted on Drufo.
No, I'm not a publisher of any scientific journals.
Isn't it true that you have a financial bias in this matter?
Well, that's a very...
Lack of foundation.
Do you wish to respond, counsel? Ms. Magia?
May I have a minute to confer with my co-counsel?
May.
Thank you. Okay. I'm kind of at a loss on the reason why onto the objection. Can you elaborate on that more?
Of course. Your Honor, the opposing counsel has never brought up any financial standings of this witness in this case. They haven't established why this witness has a financial bias in this case or what that would be if they had one. I just ask that opposing counsel lay more foundation before they ask that question.
And do you wish to respond, Ms. McGee?
I can go ahead and lay it down a few more questions.
All right, I will allow it.
This is your first time testifying on a trial, correct?
Yes, it's exhilarating. I love being able to tell the jury all of my thoughts.
And isn't it true that you've had to give litigation to previous trials, but you've never been in one before?
Well, not to previous trials. I've submitted some of my studies and reviews to different litigatory agents for making new laws, but I haven't yet seen the judicial system in play in this way, where you get to see the ruling on a case instead of just a law being formed.
My apologies on that. And you are here today, correct? And because you are testifying behalf on Dakota Weirs on Drufo?
I am. I believe that Drufo caused Dakota Weir's condition, and I want everyone to weigh my evidence alongside the rest of it.
And are you doing this matter for free?
I am not. I was paid a retainer to work as an expert witness, but if I am being frank, it's nothing compared to the justice that I want for this case, and it's definitely nothing compared to being able to get my research out there. You know, financial bias is the least important part of this case for me. I love telling people about my data.
But you would admit that a financial bias can be biased in this matter due to the outcome of the case?
I mean, every expert witness gets paid for their testimony. That's just boilerplate. But yes, absolutely, I'm being paid for my testimony here.
And is it true that no one else has ever replicated your study, correct?
Well, like I already made clear, my study hasn't yet gone through the long process of being peer-reviewed and published. People don't know about this area of research, most notably because research wasn't being done when the product first came on the market. Like I said, it was an under-researched thing in the first place. It's still under-researched. That's why I made my study at all.
So that would be a yes to the question, correct?
Yes, nobody else has done research like mine and gotten any results, positive or negative.
So this could mean that there is not enough evidence on your study, correct? Since you are the only one who has conducted it.
I mean, if you're talking about evidence, my study is all of it. Nobody else has ever done a study in the same form with the same methodology. That means that that's what's a relevant study about cancer possibilities in humans.
And your career has been focused on finding harmful effects caused by chemical agents. Isn't it true that this can make you biased on your own study?
I don't think I understand how that works.
Since your whole career, since you've graduated college and collected your PhDs, you've mainly worked on, your career has been focused on finding harmful effects that have been caused by chemical agents, correct?
Oh no, it's fascinating. I've actually bounced around from job to job and place to place. You know, I bachelor in chemistry, I got a PhD in horticulture. Those aren't exactly the same topic. And I worked for a chemical company that didn't have to do with toxicology. You know, my area of interest has changed a lot of the time. I'm sure it might change again, but right now I'm definitely focused on toxicology.
And that is the reason why you're here, correct?
Well, I'm here because I want everyone to know what my data shows.
That is all at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly.
You may proceed.
Can I confirm with my timekeepers that they're ready?
Yes. I'm looking in the chat there. I think the mid-iron indicated ready. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, why did you never publish your study that you did on Drufo?
Well, like I said, a lot of it is that publishing a study goes through a wide variety of bureaucracy. Different journals might not want access to it. You know, it's a very complicated issue.
Okay, moving on. Thank you. Do you believe your financial bias in this case has any effect on why you're testifying here today?
Absolutely not. I mean, obviously I have bias. I wouldn't be testifying if I didn't care about the results, but that passion has nothing to do with getting paid. It's about justice and obviously about my study being heard.
Thank you. And can you reiterate just once again why you are testifying here today?
I think Dakota Wires deserves justice, and I also think all the evidence has made clear that Drufo.
I didn't hear that objection.
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
Do you wish to respond, Ms. Yett?
Yes, Your Honor. This question, the specific question has not been asked and answered. I'm simply asking the witness to reiterate a specific part of why they're here today. I'm not asking the same question that my opposing counsel asked on cross-examination.
My recollection was that question was asked in the direct, so I'm going to sustain the objection. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, can you tell me more about why your financial bias in your case, in this case, has no effect on your testimony? Not why you're testifying here today, but your specific testimony?
Sure, I can explain that a little bit more in depth.
Objection, asked and answered.
Do you wish to respond to that, Ms. Yett?
Yes, Your Honor. I specifically rephrased my question to ask about why they are testifying or about their testimony, not about the general reason why they are testifying on behalf of Dakota Wires.
And you think the distinguishing factor is that it's regarding his testimony as opposed to why he's testifying?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'll allow it. I'll overrule the objection. You may answer.
Would you like me to re-ask my question?
I absolutely would. Sorry, I'm a bit harebrained.
No worries, Dr. Rogers. Do you believe that your financial bias has any effect on your testimony today?
I definitely don't believe so. Like I might have implied beforehand, what's really most important here is that everyone has access to this data. There's a reason that I've been submitting all the data that I've collected to legislative groups and different companies for years now. And it's because I want that information to be out. I truly believe that all of this evidence shows a conclusion that fits with the plaintiff. And that conclusion is very important to me to be accurately based on all of this evidence. I want the jury to have access to it.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
And any recross, Ms. Munguia?
May I have a minute to confer with my co-counsels?
You may.
No further redirect, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may step down, Dr. Rogers, and just for the jury, you are Mr. Shefflin. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. All right, next witness by the plaintiff.
The plaintiff calls Carson Durst to the stand.
All right, and for the jurors.
Raven Chamberlain.
Thank you. And then if I've got this right, this is Ms. Miller. Okay. All right. The timer's ready. I believe so. You may proceed, Ms. Chamberlain.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
My name is Carson Durst, and Durst is spelled D-U-R-S-T.
Are you currently employed, Ms. Durst?
I am, yes.
Where do you work?
I work with Terrace Greenery.
About how long have you worked there?
Let's see, I've worked there since end of 2006, so about 15 going on 16 years at this point.
Did you work anywhere prior to Terrace?
I did, yes. In fact, directly prior to working for Terrace Greenery, I worked for Lush Fertilizer.
And about how long did you work there?
I was brought on as an intern in June of 2003, and then left in December of 2006. So about three and a half years.
What was your position at Lush?
At Lush, I was first brought on as an intern, as I just mentioned, and then was eventually promoted to a full-time position on the company's research and development team.
Did you work on any specific products at Lush?
I did, yes. In fact, during the time that I was working at Lush, they were developing the ingredient Drufo. So I worked extensively on studies and work regarding that ingredient.
Were there any downfalls of Drufo?
Yeah, absolutely. Drufo was found to be carcinogenic and still is, which is a major downfall.
Hold on just a second. We got an objection. Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, objection on speculation, Your Honor.
You wish to respond, Ms. Chamberlain?
Your Honor, could opposing counsel explain their objection?
Yes, your witness is trying to speak on the downfall of Drufo, though that was above their pay grade and they were not involved in the downfall of Drufo. They are also not an expert witness.
May I respond, Your Honor? Your Honor, my witness was a part of the team that produced Drufo and knows if it had any downfalls or if it did not, so I believe that they are not speculating on this. You seem to be muted, Your Honor.
Thank you. What I heard the witness say was more of a statement than a speculation, if you will. So that may change, but I'm going to overrule the objection at this time.
Would you like me to re-ask my question?
Yes, please, Ms. Chamberlain.
Were there any downfalls of Drufo?
Yes, absolutely. Drufo was found to be carcinogenic, which is a major downfall as it's still carcinogenic today.
Did you ever have any communication with supervisors about this downfall?
I did, absolutely. Yeah, extensive communication.
Now, if I could have my co-counsel screen share Exhibit 4, please. Just one moment, Your Honor. And are you able to see that, Ms. Durst?
I am, yes, thank you.
And if my co-counsel could scroll all the way down so you can see the whole exhibit. What is this, Ms. Doncourt? I mean, Ms.
This is an email that I received from my manager at the time when I was working at Lush Fertilizer, Jerry Langley, regarding a study that we had conducted surrounding Drufo and its carcinogenic properties.
Does it seem to be a clear and accurate copy?
If you could have your co-counsel scroll down one more time so I can just make sure. Yes, it appears to be clear and accurate.
Your Honor, I now move to admit what has been previously marked as Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection by the defense?
No objections, Your Honor.
The court will receive Exhibit 4.
Thank you. And now if I could have my co-counsel scroll down just a little bit to the second paragraph. Ms. Durst, could you read the first sentence of the second paragraph to the court, please?
Sure, absolutely. That line states that following our lab's June Drufo study, concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential carcinogenic qualities identified in samples produced during a period early in the year.
What does this sentence mean to you?
Essentially, when I read this line in this email as a whole from Jerry, I took it as a response to the studies that we had been conducting on Drufo, and the fact that our company, or Lush Fertilizer, my company at the time, had found potential carcinogenic qualities within Drufo in our own in-house study.
And if my co-counsel could scroll up just a little bit. In the to portion of this email, do you happen to see any of your supervisors or superiors?
Yes, absolutely. I see multiple of them, but most notably Blake Doncourt, who was and still is the CEO of Lush Fertilizer today.
Thank you. And if my co-counsel could stop screen sharing now. We're going to move on a little bit to Blake Doncourt. Do you know Blake Doncourt?
Yes, very well.
What's your relationship with them?
Well, for the early period of my life, our relationship was pretty good. Blake is the parent of one of my best childhood friends, Charlie Doncourt. And so since Charlie and I grew up together playing soccer, playing together on traveling teams, I spent extensive time with Blake.
Relevance?
You wish to respond?
Yes, Your Honor. As Blake Doncourt is the CEO of Lush Fertilizer and Lush Fertilizer is the defendant in today's case, it is very relevant and important to talk about Ms. Durst's relationship with Blake Doncourt.
Why?
To show the possible bias in today's case, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain the objection at this time.
Okay. Now we're going to move on a little bit to your time at Lush. Why did you ultimately leave Lush?
Ultimately, I left Lush because regarding some concerns that I had around that email that we just mentioned, around the fact that Druco had carcinogenic qualities, I continuously brought these concerns up to my supervisors, asking what we were going to do about these concerns, as I thought that they should be addressed. But these concerns were never addressed by my supervisors. And so a lot of conflicts came into play during my time, and it just really became a really hostile work environment where I didn't feel like I was being listened to by Blake Doncourt or any of my other superiors. And so I made the decision to move jobs and go to Terrace Greenery. But ultimately, I left because in December of 2006, I was fired, I believe, because I kept bringing up these concerns and my superiors just didn't want to hear it.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Redirect? And it is Ms. Gonzalez, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You may proceed with your redirect.
Thank you. You are Carson Durst, correct?
I am, yes, correct.
And you work at Terrace Greenery currently?
Currently, yeah, I do.
And that's where you look over the line and fertilizer lawn enhancement products?
Oh, Ms. Gonzalez, if you could repeat your question one more time. I just couldn't quite hear you there.
Yes, that's where you look over lawn and fertilizer enhancement products?
Yes, that is part of my job as lead product developer, absolutely.
And you and Charles were like best friends, correct?
We weren't like best friends, we were best friends.
And is it true shortly before graduation you still hadn't found a job?
Before graduation of college, yeah, I was graduating from ASU, go Sun Devils, and I had not. Yeah, it was about May of 2003, and yeah, I was struggling to find one.
So, and you also weren't top of your class, but did well enough in school?
Yeah, I would like to think that I did really well in school. I'm really proud of myself.
Did Charles pull any strings for you to get into Lush Fertilizer?
I don't know if I would say pulling strings, but Charlie definitely did talk to to Blake, their parent, about getting me a job at Lush, just because I was so well qualified and because that relationship already existed. Charles thought that I would be able to get an internship at Lush, and I gladly accepted.
So is that a yes?
It is, yeah, absolutely.
And to clarify, you knew the Doncourt family when you were hired for Lush Fertilizer?
Absolutely, yeah. As I explained to Ms. Chamberlain, I had spent extensive time with the family, so absolutely.
And positions like the one you were offered are hard to come by for new graduates without experience, right?
Absolutely, which is why I was so grateful for the opportunity that the Doncourts saw my ability and were willing to take a chance on me.
And you rose quite quickly through the ranks while working at Lush Fertilizer.
I did, yes. I'd like to think that my talents and really my aptitude for this line of work was really recognized. I was promoted to a full-time position after only 3 months as an intern. So yeah, you could say I rose through the ranks pretty quick.
So while working there, you were doing research on Drufo, right?
Yes, absolutely. Specifically within those first 3 months as an intern, that's when the majority of my research work was occurring.
And you couldn't find any studies which explored whether the chemical compounds had any adverse effects in humans?
I couldn't know. Lush was first introduced and first starting to be developed in 2001. And so when I was brought onto the team in 2003, there wasn't a lot of research on it yet. Is this revolutionary product, as Lush likes to say, was new on the market.
And is it also true that you breached your non-disclosure agreement?
I did, absolutely.
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the objection?
Lack of foundation.
Do you want to respond, Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, Your Honor. Can I have a moment to confer with co-counsel?
You may.
Thank you. Your Honor, I can lay the proper foundation.
All right. So I will allow that. And then if you wish to renew your objection, Ms. Chamberlain, I'm going to just reserve ruling on it.
So are you aware of a non-disclosure agreement?
Yes, absolutely. And I believe the one that you're specifically referring to is one that I signed with Lush Fertilizer.
So to clarify, you did sign this agreement?
I did, yes. Yeah, back in 2006.
And then after this, this non-disclosure agreement was breached?
It was accidentally, yeah, in the mess that was me leaving Lush and getting fired and getting my new job. I by mistake breached this non-disclosure agreement. Absolutely, it led to a ginormous legal mess. And yeah, so I'm sorry that I did, but yeah, I did.
And it's also true that while you were working there, you did not have access to all the data analyzed by various members of research and development team?
That is true. As an intern, specifically, I was just that. I was an intern. I wasn't a full-on member of the team. And so, yeah, of course, like any intern, I wouldn't have access to everything that Lush had in their databases.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then you may step down, Ms. Durst. Is the plaintiff ready to call their last witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Plaintiff calls Dakota Weirs to the stand.
Right, and you are Ms. Madden.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Give us just one moment. I believe she is setting up the computer now.
Okay. And that's going to be Ms. Yates for the jurors. All right, I think we've got her there. Are the timers ready?
And shortly, can I just get a time check?
That had me really concerned for a moment.
Yeah.
The 99 minutes. All right. Thank you. All right. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may.
All right. Ms. Weirs, can you please state your name and spell your last for the record?
Yes, my first is Dakota and my last is Weirs.
Alrighty. And how are you feeling today?
Not too well, actually.
And why is that?
I was recently diagnosed with a cancer that affects your lymph nodes. It's called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it has seriously affected my life.
How has it affected your life?
I used to be a strong part of my community and strong part of my school, and I'm no longer to do the activities I enjoy doing.
And what activities were those?
Mostly for school, I was a part of the NHS, the National Honor Society, And I did everything I could to be able to stand out from other people in my school, out from my peers. And I was able to get a scholarship to my dream school, to Juilliard.
And was
But
Juilliard important to you?
yes, it definitely was. I got a scholarship for playing piano, and I'm no longer able to play the piano, and I had to turn down the scholarship.
And was the piano important to you?
It definitely was. Ever since I was a little kid, my grandfather would play the piano, and I was mesmerized by how he played. And ever since I was able to be able to reach both the foot pedals and the keys at the same time, I was practicing and I was learning as much as I could. And when he passed, I was so devastated, and I felt that the only way I could stay connected to him was if I learned how to play the piano as well as he did. And after my parents saw great opportunities with my abilities, they put me into schooling, and I learned how to play the piano, and it was fantastic. But then once I got
Excuse me. You talked about awards. What kind of awards would you win with the piano?
Yeah, I would go in competitions, and I would win them, and I'd get awards. And I did lots of concerts as well.
Your Honor, may I object on relevance?
You may. Do you wish to be heard, Ms. Fountain?
Would co-counsel be able to explain the objection?
What is the relevance of the awards that Ms. Weirs has achieved for the case today?
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
It is important to understand how important the piano was to Ms. Weirs, and that includes awards, schooling. This also establishes foundation for her to understand the importance of the piano.
I'm going to overrule the objection. You may proceed.
Alrighty. And your family, how are they dealing with this diagnosis?
My father has been very helpful. He's helped me by paying part of my medical bills.
And have those become expensive?
Yes, very much so.
And is that difficult for your family?
It is.
And what about the rest of your family members?
My twin Skylar hasn't been very helpful, and in fact, they decided to go against me and destroy our relationship by saying I'm wrong with this, and they're actually on the other side of this argument.
And is that difficult for you?
It's heartbreaking. We never had the best relationship, and this just entirely destroys it.
And moving on a little bit, you talked about other activities in the community. What other kind of things would you do with your time?
I would help out at my local homeless shelter. I would help by like doing dishes and serving soup and just helping the people, the less fortunate people of my community.
And did you enjoy doing that kind of work?
It made me feel amazing whenever I helped them, and they all loved it too. But unfortunately, because of my diagnosis, I can't do much anymore, and it's devastating.
And moving on a little bit, were you ever employed?
Yes, I got a job when I was 14 at a landscaping company, Haven Landscaping.
And what kind of things would you do there?
I mostly spread fertilizer and grass seeds. I was too young to work the big machinery.
And so you were being pretty safe while working at your place, landscaping company.
Yes.
And what kind of products did you use?
We would mostly use Lush fertilizer just because we believed it was the safest of them.
And did you follow all of the recommendations for safety usage when using those products?
Not entirely. I was a 14-year-old going under, I was following the influence of the other people around me, and they didn't really wear their protective clothing. And well, as a 14-year-old, neither did I.
Sorry, everything just flashed. Give me one moment. Okay, I don't know what happened there. I apologize. How would you use this fertilizer?
I'd mostly spread it wherever I was told to.
Alrighty. You talked about your other coworkers. Would they also spread this fertilizer?
The people who were working while spreading were also using the same fertilizer I was, but then there were others who were using the machinery.
Alrighty. If I could have co-counsel please screen share exhibit 1. Ms. Weirs, are you able to see this exhibit?
Yes, I am.
And can you please tell me what it is?
It seems to be a label from one of the Lush fertilizer products.
And does this appear to be a clean and accurate copy?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I move to move exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
The court will receive exhibit 1.
Ms. Weirs, do you see any hazards or cautions on this label?
I do not see any cautions to what it can do to you.
And are there any safety recommendations?
There are recommendations.
Would you please read that small paragraph underneath where it says user safety recommendations?
The entire paragraph?
Yes, just that top paragraph there.
As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin. Use of respirator or N95 face mask is recommended. Follow manufacturer's instructions for cleaning/maintaining personal protective equipment.
And you didn't use any of these while working?
No, and as mentioned before, I was following the influence of my peers and the uppers of my workplace, which is why I hadn't worn protective clothing, as well as I didn't see any warnings on there, so there was no real reason for me to wear them.
And did that ever worry you not wearing protective equipment?
No, it really didn't. And as I had previously stated, I didn't see any warnings on there. And so there was no real reason to be worried.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Hello, Mrs. Weirs. So you said that at the age of 14, you started working for Havens Landscaping, correct?
That is correct.
And you were a landscaping technician for Havens, correct?
Yes, I spread fertilizer.
Yeah, and as you said, you're primarily responsible for spreading those seed fertilizer.
Yes.
And you had mentioned that it requires you to use your hands to spread the products around, correct?
I don't believe mentioning that, but yes, it does require my hands to spread them.
Yeah, and you did you wear gloves while spreading this fertilizer around?
No, I don't think so.
And did you wear a face covering?
No.
As long as long sleeves.
No, and as previously stated, I didn't really wear any protective clothing just because I was under the influence. No, sorry. I was following the influence of the other people in my work department, and it was just a 14-year-old following others.
Yes, but your boss had told you these items, for you to wear these items of clothing while working with any chemicals?
Yeah, once or twice he had mentioned that we should wear our protective clothing.
And as you mentioned, as following the influence, everyone else did not wear long sleeves and long pants.
Correct. And most of them didn't wear their stuff because there were no warning labels and because it was just so hot outside for us to wear that.
Yes, and can we actually have you go back and look at Exhibit 1? And as you read the label of these user safety recommendations, it has been stated to wear a N5 face mask as long as any eye protectant or personal protective equipment known as PPE, and for you to wash your hands before and after use of this product. After you've seen those safety instructions, did you see how they were included for a reason?
I didn't exactly see that they were included for a reason. They were just put there because for legal stuff, but I didn't see a warning anywhere saying what would happen if you didn't wear that stuff.
But they were recommended, correct?
Yes, they were recommended, but there was no reason to wear it.
But the reason why it was put in as a recommendations was for a reason of your safety.
I'm sorry, can you restate that? I don't quite understand.
So the reason why they were put in as a recommendation was for the safety of the user, correct?
That could be one of the reasons.
Objection, Your Honor.
What's your objection?
Lack of personal knowledge.
Give us
Your
your
Honor.
response. Come.
Your Honor, I'm trying to lay the foundation of that they do see that there was a safety user recommendations because they were put in there as for the safety.
I'm going to overrule the objection. You may proceed, Ms. Cobb.
And as you've seen those safety user recommendations, you have ignored those instructions though.
I'm sorry, I missed that question. Can you please restate it?
After seeing those recommendations, you ignored those recommendations, correct?
I didn't quite ignore, I just hadn't paid attention to them as much.
And even though through your carelessness and ignored or haven't paid attention through the safety instructions, sorry, I just realized I worded that weirdly. And even though you were careless and did not bother to follow those safety instructions, would you say that's correct?
I didn't follow them mostly because other people weren't following them as well. And I was a preteen following people who were older than me. And there was no real reason that I could see for me to actually follow them.
So that is a no.
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. I think there's very little time left, but did you wish any redirect?
A brief redirect, Your Honor.
All right, you may.
If I may have co-counsel, please screen share Exhibit 1. And are you able to see that, Ms. Weirs?
I am.
At anywhere on this document, does it state that you need to wear gloves?
No, I don't see any.
And did any of these recommendations or hazards ever cause you any inclination that there might be harm caused from this product?
No, not at all.
Alrighty, no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any recross?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'm sorry, not Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, are you aware that you had made a statement prior to today?
Yes, I am.
And are you aware of, sorry, I'm trying to find the statement myself right now. Sorry, where did it go? Oh, here it is. And you are Can you please follow the lines as I state these?
Objection, Your Honor.
Is your objection?
Improper impeachment.
I guess I haven't heard how she's going to try and impeach her just yet.
This witness has not, may I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
This witness has not been asked a question yet and has no reason to be impeached.
Okay.
Sorry, Your Honor, may I have a moment to speak with my co-counsel?
You may.
Your Honor, I am impeaching this witness due to the fact that during the last questions, she had improper answers due to her statement that she made previous today.
And did you want to respond to that at all?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
This witness has not been confirmed a question yet and has not been given a chance to reflect on their response.
Your Honor, I have not given a question yet. I was trying to point to the witness's statement.
So I think where things were at was Ms. Cobb was asking Ms. Weir whether or not she had made a statement, and you were reviewing that statement. Had you even asked a question about the statement?
I had asked of Ms. Weirs if she was aware of making a statement previous to today.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection, and you may proceed, Ms. Cobb.
Yes, and I asked that Mrs. Weirs that you go to your statement to lines 64 and 65. And as I will read aloud. We are also technically supposed to wear long sleeves, pants, and gloves when we used fertilizer, but it was summer and it was way too hot to do that. Did I read that right, Mrs. Weirs?
You did.
And may I also ask that within the safety user, even though it has not been stated through the safety user, you were aware that you were supposed to wear gloves when working with fertilizer?
That is what my boss had told me, but it was nowhere on the label saying that we had to wear them, which is what my attorney was asking.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Weir. You may step down. And again, for the jurors, that was Ms. Yates. All right. Do we do a formal resting by the plaintiff? I just think we go into the defense witnesses. Isn't that correct?
No formal resting, Your Honor.
All right. Then is the defense ready to present their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
And if my recollection is correct, you're Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, I am.
All right. And who are you going to call as your first witness?
The defense calls Blake Doncourt to the stand.
And Mr. Doncourt, you are, sorry, I'm looking here for the jury. Pronounce your last name for me. I'm not sure I got it correctly.
Marks.
Marks. That was easy. All right. Are the timers ready? All right. I think they are, Ms. Gonzalez. You may proceed.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
Where do you work?
I've worked at Lush since 2000. I am currently the CEO of Lush Fertilizer.
And why are you here today?
I am here today because Lush and I are falsely accused of ignoring a carcinogen in our fertilizer.
And what is Lush's history as a company?
Well, I have grown the company from an unknown producer of fertilizer to one of the
Objection, Your Honor.
The basis for your objection?
Under Rule 5.1.2, witnesses are not allowed to read from their affidavit, and it appears that Mr. Doncourt is doing so.
Do you want to respond, Ms. Gonzalez?
I do not believe my witness is reading from their affidavit.
Well, let's resolve it in this way. If you are Mr. Marks, i.e. Mr. Doncourt, then you need to stop reading. Okay? With that, I guess I'll sustain the objection to that extent, and you may proceed, Ms. Gonzalez.
Would you like me to repeat the question, Mr. Doncourt?
Yes, please.
What's Lush's history as a company?
Like I was saying earlier, I have grown the company from an unknown producer of fertilizer to one of the world's largest suppliers of yard commercial fertilizers.
And has it been hard to keep up with Lush's success?
Well, I am proud of our company's success. It came only after years of research, development, and experimentals of our sufficient capital.
What was this work like?
I work day and night to make Lush the profitable company it is today. Lush Fertilizer's success has been allowed me to direct 10% of our annual profits to charities.
And what charities does Lush donate to?
We donate to charities that are working hard to decrease the world's global nitrogen footprint and now have our own charity as well.
That's good to hear. What is the benefit of your charity?
Since our company has been instrumental in creating state and national legislation seeking further education environmental issues worldwide, our charity focuses on cleaning the most polluted areas of the world's oceans.
And what accomplishments have you made as a CEO?
I have received many awards for my humanitarianism work and my work with these charities and other environmental causes.
Can you go ahead and explain a little bit more on a specific reward?
Yes. In 2019, Lush was one of the recipients of the prestigious Seal of...
Objection, Your Honor.
The nature of your objection?
Once again, I object on the grounds of 5.1.2. The witness is direct quoting from line 16, and I would just ask that he put away his affidavit.
Ms. Gonzalez, do you wish to respond?
Yes. Can I have a moment to confer with co-counsel?
You may.
Thank you. Your Honor, again, I don't believe my witness is reading off of the affidavit.
Well, I think probably the best way to handle this is that obviously the opposing counsel has brought it to the attention of the jury. and we'll let them determine whether or not that's an issue. So with that, I'll in essence sustain the objection, but you may proceed, Ms. Gonzalez.
Would you like me to repeat the question? Your mic is off, Mr. Johncourt.
Yes, please.
Can you go ahead and explain a specific award that has been granted to you?
The prestigious Seal Award and the Champions of the World won in 2020. I was hoping to get it again in 2021 before this all happened.
When saying this all happened, does that refer to the controversy of Drufo?
Yes.
So let's talk some more about Drufo. Were there any warning labels on the sign of your product?
No.
And why was that?
Well, our extensive research and testing before putting our product on the market and not identifying this in a specific risk or persons coming to contract with our product.
What did the research say on Drufo?
And since there was little risk of the people using our fertilizer, there was no need under federal or state law to put a warning on our product.
What led you to believe in this?
Well, as David Williams will tell you, our toxology research and development team from nothing in the product or apparently did the EPA to require a warning with the insufficient levels of toxicity in our fertilizer.
Were you ever aware of any reasons to be concerned that Drufo was dangerous?
No, I was certainly never aware of any substantial concerns of any reason to be concerned about Drufo was dangerous.
And why was this?
About Drufo was dangerous. That's because I never seen any valid scientific evidence showing a reasonable probability that Drufo is a carcinogen, and there has been no conclusive studies that show referral and carcinogens in us people.
Now, I want to go on and talk to you about Casey Rogers. Are you aware that Casey Rogers has been hired for the plaintiff side?
Yes, I am aware the plaintiff's hired gun, Casey Rogers, claims to have done some study of that was never published in any science journal.
And I know you know Carson as well. Are you aware that Carson is also a witness for the plaintiff?
Yes, let's address the claims by the regrettable disappointment.
Was Carson able to speak to you about the issues at hand here?
Yes, Carson had every opportunity to bring them to Lush's attention or mine personally.
Did Carson ever talk to you about Drufo?
No, Carson's claims about Drufo never come up until Carson was fired. If his claims were true, they would have had a paper trail.
And what was Carson's job for Lush Fertilizer?
Well, it was actually Carson's job to look over any dangers or risks so that we could follow up on them.
And are you aware about an email Carson has brought to this case?
Yes, the search of our company's computers did not turn up any such email.
What was actually on the email reports that you received?
Those are the same reports that were provided to me that said there was no specific cancer damage.
And why do you feel so strongly about being accused of Dakota's disease?
Well, I would have never allowed our company to put it on the market if there was a variable Drufa could be carcinogenic.
And do you know Dakota Weirs?
I do not.
Is there anything you would want to say to her?
Yes, I feel terrible about Dakota Weirs has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a very dangerous disease, as I hope that Dakota will have a very swift recovery.
That was a very thoughtful response. Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, cross-exam.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Doncourt, you built Lush from the ground up, correct?
Yes.
You worked day and night to get the company to where it is today,
Yes.
but you couldn't have done this all alone, could you?
No.
You had to have a little bit of financial help from seed investors?
Yes.
Now, we'll come back to those in a little bit. You would consider yourself as well as your company environmentalists?
Yes.
You even donate a percentage of your charities to, a percentage of your profits to local charities?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
Did you wish to respond, Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes, Your Honor. I am just establishing that Blake Doncourt's company is donating a portion of their profits to charities, and this was brought up in direct as well.
I would concur that it was brought up in direct, and because of that, I'm going to overrule the objection. You may proceed.
Now, I'll re-ask my question. You even donate a portion of your profits to charities?
Yes.
Now, moving on a little bit to the packaging of your fertilizer. On the packaging, it says that face masks are recommended, correct?
Yes.
And that's recommended, not required?
Yes.
Now, moving on a little bit to your relationship with Carson Durst. You know Carson Durst?
Yes.
You've known them for almost their whole life?
Yes.
They're almost like a second kid to you?
Yes.
After college, you gave them a job?
Yes.
They acted ungrateful for the many opportunities you had given them throughout their life?
Yes.
Now, moving on a little bit to your product, Drufo. You made the choice to not bake Drufo, correct?
Yes.
You needed this money for other things?
Yes.
Such as paying your seed investors that I mentioned previously?
Yeah.
Now, you're divorced as well, correct?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
Relevance, Ms. Chamberlain?
Your Honor, I'm establishing that Mr. Doncourt also pays a portion of this money that he could have used for baking the Drufo to his ex-spouse.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Now, continuing on a little bit, baking Drufo would have gotten rid of any risk.
Yeah.
Even a small risk?
Objection, Your Honor. My witness, that is a lack of personal knowledge.
Do you wish to respond, Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes, Your Honor. As Mr. Doncourt is the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, he would know if baking Drufo would get rid of even a small risk in his product.
Well, I don't know if he would know it for sure, but I'm going to allow you to ask the question if he knows that. So I'm going to ask you to rephrase, and we'll overrule the objection.
You would know if baking Drufo even got rid of the smallest risk?
No.
But baking Drufo would get rid of any risk, correct?
No.
It wouldn't get rid of any risks?
it would get rid of some risk, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Johncourt, can you go ahead and explain why there was no required warning label on your product?
Could you please say that again? I couldn't hear you.
Yes. Can you go ahead and explain why there was no required warning labels?
Well, we didn't think at the time that Drufo was carcinogenic.
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the nature of the objection?
I believe that this question is outside of the scope of my cross. I never asked about why a warning label would be put on the product or not.
I'm going to sustain that objection. I didn't hear that either. Further question, Ms. Gonzalez?
No further questions, Your Honor.
In light of that, I don't think there's any recross. All right. You may step down. And again, for the jurors, that was Mr. Marks. All right. And next witness for the defense.
Your Honor, we ask that Skylar Weirs comes to the podium.
All right.
May I ask the court for a moment to change my username on screen?
You may. And you're Mr. Booker, correct?
Yes, Your Honor, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record, Ms. Weirs.
Skylar Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
And what is your occupation?
I'm an investigative journalist.
And when you worked as an investigative journalist, who did you work for?
Rationalist Magazine.
And what is Rationalist?
It's a quarterly science education magazine that tries to combat dogma and scientific inaccuracies and conspiracy theories, things like that.
And what is the goal of Rationalist magazine?
Just as I sort of stated, we try to stop dogma and irrational beliefs among the scientific community.
And what are some of the topics that you have investigated?
I've talked a lot about, or I've investigated a lot of things about vaccines, climate change, and some other politicized issues.
And Mr. Weirs, do you have a formal education?
No, I do not.
And fair to say that your knowledge and expertise comes from hands-on experience in the field?
It would be, yes.
And does that knowledge and expertise come from the extensive research into topics that you have written for Rationalists?
Yeah, it would.
Have you especially investigated the topics of Drufo?
Yes.
Can you describe those?
So I wrote about Drufo as part of a series. I was picked by a writer, and when I was writing a series of articles on modern agritech, and I spent nearly a year just researching and collecting data from various agritech companies.
And what are some of those companies and information you got your information from?
Two of the big ones were the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, and the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture.
And did you just focus on those two general resources?
No, I also looked into some historical and statistical information.
And again, how long did you take to get your research?
It was nearly a year.
Your Honor, I'd like to move to admit Skylar Weirs as an expert in modern agritech.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. May we do a voir dire?
You may.
Mr. Weirs, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Alrighty. Are you a scientist?
Well, it depends on what your definition of scientist is, I suppose.
Alrighty. Have you worked in a lab?
No, I have not.
You've been in the field working with agritech, yes?
I have, yeah.
You've been talking to scientists,
Yes,
and you gather your own information, yes?
I do gather my own information. Yes, that is correct.
Do you have people that are checking your work?
Your Honor,
what
may we pause the time? My co-counsel, Callista Cobb, got kicked out of the Zoom meeting.
Although I see her. Are you there, Ms. Cobb?
Yes, I got kicked out for a moment and I could not hear any of the questions that had been asked for my witness.
Okay. So I'm not exactly sure whose time that should go against or not under the circumstances. But if I've got my witnesses right, this is Miss Madden, correct? I mean,
Yes,
my attorney's right. Miss Madden, could you repeat those questions? And then I guess I would ask the timers to, if we could just start over from Miss Madden's voir dire, then
Thank you, Your Honor.
we can just have you repeat those. And I guess I'll just say this. Thank you, Ms. Munguia. We weren't aware that was happening with you, Ms. Cobb, so I'm glad that we were made aware of that. So, all right. Are you ready to proceed, Ms. Mountain? Can you just repeat your questions?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may.
You've worked in a laboratory before, Mr. Weirs, yes?
I've never worked directly in a laboratory, no.
You've worked in a field studying agritech?
I have, yes.
And you are a writer, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you write for The Rationalist?
I do, yes.
And that's a science magazine?
It is.
And they write about all different kinds of science?
Many different topics in science, yes.
And do you choose what, or sorry, excuse me, you choose what you write about?
I do get to choose what I write about, yes.
And you're compensated for that writing?
Yes, I am.
And you've been to college?
No, I have not.
And you have a formal education?
What would you consider a formal education?
College degree, any type of certification in modern agritech?
No, I do not.
And you've written a series on
objection. My witness does not need to have a formal education to be able to state under Rule 702 to be able to state that they can be an expert just by showing that they have significant knowledge within the field.
Well, that's a determination that I have to make, Ms. Cobb. And right now, Ms. Madden is voir diring your expert to determine whether or not she wishes to object to his recognition as such. So I'll let you proceed, Ms. Madden.
Thank you, Your Honor. And you spoke about not having a formal education. You've interviewed many scientists on this topic?
Which topic do you mean?
Agritech.
Yes, I have.
And you included all of those interviews in your article.
My article, yes, I do.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Are you objecting to his recognition or her recognition? Not sure how we're doing that. Are you objecting to the witness Weir's recognition as an expert?
Yes, Your Honor. This witness does not have enough qualifications to consider them an expert in agritech.
All right. And Ms. Cobb, do you wish to respond to that objection?
Your Honor, may I have a moment to confirm with my co-counsel?
You may.
Your Honor, 702 doesn't require a college or a formal education. He would be an expert because he has the experience in this field of modern agritech, and that experience allows him to help the jury understand the issue that is presented in this case.
All right, I will find that the witness Weirs offers some experience and expertise that a layperson would not in this particular area, and therefore I am going to overrule the objection to recognize him as an expert and will do so. You may proceed, Ms. Cobb.
Yes, Mr. Weirs, have you ever heard of Lush Fertilizer?
I have, yes.
And how did you come to know Lush Fertilizer?
It was through my research on Drufo, which Lush Fertilizer discovered.
And how did Lush Fertilizer come into your work?
I had found that Lush was being attacked by a lot of pseudo-scientific groups and conspiracy theories.
And what did you discover about Lush that caused this pseudoscience?
This harsh feedback was threatening Lush's business practices and its survivability as a business in general.
And this is normal for a business like Lush to get this feedback?
It happens quite often, yes.
And in what ways is Drufo a helpful product?
So Drufo actually reduces the amount of fertilizer, pesticides, and nitrogen runoff, which is a great thing for the environment.
And would you say that Drufo causes cancer, but to be more specific, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Other
Objection, Your Honor.
Yes, what is your objection?
Improper lay opinion. This witness is not a medical doctor and is only experienced in the field of agritech.
Do you wish to respond, Ms. Cobb?
May I have a moment to confirm with my co-counsel?
You may.
Your Honor, Drufo is underneath agritech and I could lay down some foundation of how Drufo is part of agritech.
You may do that. I'm going to sustain the objection for now.
Mr. Weirs, can you describe more of how Drufo affects the nitrogen runoff?
Your Honor, may I have a refresher by examining my affidavit again?
I don't know. Is that allowed?
I believe by the rules it is, yes.
All right, then you may.
Your Honor, just to clarify, this witness is checking through their affidavit?
That was my understanding, that he wished to review his affidavit.
Under 5.1.2, witnesses may not have their affidavit in front of them. Attorneys may bring the affidavit in to reflect the witness's recollection.
I agree. We would, it seems maybe that's like a little hard to actually accomplish under the circumstances. But I guess for purposes of my analysis of it, that was along the lines of what I was thinking, that he was refreshing his recollection. I guess if you wanted Ms. Cobb to go through the process of that, we could do it for practice, but
that would be my preference, Your Honor.
Okay, you may.
I will like to have my witness be able to pull up the camera and unmute.
Would you repeat the question for me?
Yes. Can you go into more depth of why Drufo has affected the nitrogen runoff?
So Drufo actually sort of helps with the growth of some plants, which impedes on nitrogen runoff, is my understanding.
Yes, and how do you get nitrogen runoff?
Nitrogen runoff it can come from loosely packed soil and water.
Yeah, and what is Drufo exactly?
Drufo is an ingredient that's used in lush fertilizers, and it binds to some of the other ingredients.
Yes, and how does it make it the soil healthier if the Drufo bonds the ingredients faster?
Could you repeat that for me?
How does it make the soil healthier if Drufo bonds the chemicals?
So it makes the soil healthier because less of it has to be used than if another pesticide were to be used. So it's less damaging to the environment overall.
Yes, and to explain that, you were saying that Drufo could help bond the nitrogen so it would not run off into the soil?
You are correct, yes.
Perfect. And would you say that Drufo has a connection to cancer?
I'm not aware of any studies that come specifically from the USDA or NASDA that have established a clear causal link between Drufo and cancer. No.
So then would you say that Drufo causes cancer, and to be more specifically, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
No, in my expert opinion, Drufo is not the cause of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in this situation.
And in your expert opinion, do you think Drufo is a harmful chemical?
It's definitely not as harmful as other pesticides, no.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-exam?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Weirs, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Alrighty. And you work for The Rationalist, correct?
You are correct, yes, I do.
And The Rationalist is a science magazine?
It is.
And you write about all kinds of science, yes?
Yes, I have.
And you write specifically about agritech?
Yeah, but I've done investigative work, research into things like vaccines and climate change as well.
And agritech is the combination of agriculture and technology?
Yes.
And you've written about a product from Lush?
I have, yes.
And that product is Drufo?
That is correct.
And Drufo is considered a part of agritech?
Yes.
And do you consider Drufo a safe product?
I do, yes.
Alrighty. And you know this from all the research that you've gathered?
From the USDA, yes, I do.
And Drufo is also a pesticide?
That is correct, yes.
And Drufo also contains nitrogen?
It does.
And nitrogen is known to be carcinogenic?
It can be, yes.
Meaning Drufo can be carcinogenic?
It is possible.
Apologies, Your Honor. And there are risks using Drufo?
Well, of course, there are risks using all kinds of fertilizers and pesticides.
Considering that Drufo contains carcinogens?
The carcinogen, yes, nitrogen.
Alrighty, moving on a little bit. Your twin is Dakota?
That is correct, yes.
And they have cancer?
They do.
And that cancer is believed to be caused by Drufo?
It is.
And as you believe Drufo is safe, do you think that Dakota's cancer would be caused by Drufo?
In my expert opinion, no.
Alrighty. And did it affect you at all taking the stand against your sister? Excuse me.
I can't say
Objection,
that we ever
relevance.
really had like.
Ms. Cobb, your objection was relevance?
Yes, Your Honor, I object to relevance.
Do you wish to reply, Ms. Madden?
Yes, Your Honor. Asking the witness this question establishes the witness is biased against the plaintiff in this case.
I will overrule the objection. You may answer.
Alrighty. I'm going to re-ask the question, Mr. Weirs. Did it affect you at all taking the stand against your sister or sibling? Excuse me.
I can't say that we've ever really been super close, so it didn't really have a huge effect on me, no. But it is. So.
Alrighty. And your writing, was your family supportive of your writing?
No, my dad was actually pretty disappointed that I decided not to go to college.
And the writing, does that generate income?
Yes, it does.
Your
and
Honor, just to stop again, my co-counsel Callista Cobb, her computer froze again and we were unable to hear the last few questions.
Okay, let's see if we can get her back. Looks like,
May I have 1 second just to fix the computers and then switch them around really quick so she could hop back on?
you may, just as
Okay.
long as the timer's keeping track, because we're only allowed a total of 15 minutes for that.
Of course. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I keep getting kicked off the internet.
Okay, but you're back now.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Ms. Mann, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to re-ask my last question. Did your family wonder, excuse me. How did your family like your writing at all?
They were not very supportive of it, no.
And your writing, did that generate income?
Does a little bit, yeah.
Your objection, Your Honor, again on relevance.
Ms. Madden, what would be the relevance of his receiving income?
This establishes a financial bias in the case to understand that if Mr. Weir's writing continues to grow and become more popular, he has a financial growth after participating in this trial.
I'm going to overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to re-ask the last question.
Okay.
Does your writing generate income?
It does, yes.
And is that income a livable wage?
I wouldn't say, well, I guess it depends on what you would consider livable.
And to my understanding, you have another job at Applebee's, yes?
I do part-time, yes.
And is that job to help pay off all of the gambling debt that you have accumulated?
In part, yes, it is.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
I'm going to sustain that.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I lay some more foundation?
Well, I'm not going to limit you on that, but I'm not going to allow you to ask further questions regarding the issue of gambling.
Yes, Your Honor. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any redirect?
May I have a moment to confer with co-counsel?
You may.
May I have Skylar Weirs come back to the podium? Skylar Weirs, would you say that how long have you researched on Drufo?
Almost a year.
And can you describe that part of the series that you had written about?
The series that I've written about, it was the one in which I was chosen by an editor to write about, I believe.
And could you provide some general information on Drufo?
Based off of the sources that I used, two of which were government agencies, there were no concrete studies that showed that Drufo was causally linked to cancer.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any recross?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
And so, Mr. Weirs, you mentioned no concrete studies, yes?
Yes.
And this was because you do all of your own research. You were able to find no studies, yes?
Would you re-ask the question, please?
Yes. You do all of your own research, correct?
I do.
And because of this, there is a possibility you could miss out on information.
There is a small possibility, I suppose.
That could include articles that state Drufo could be carcinogenic.
They could go against the USDA. Yeah, there is a small chance. I don't believe credibly so, though.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Is the defense ready with their third witness?
Yes, Your Honor, we would like to call Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
Your Honor.
Got Dr. Williams there?
Yes, I am Dr. Devin Williams.
All right, and for the jurors?
Excuse me.
Yes.
May I have a moment to change the name and my real name?
Sure, yeah, you can do that. And then Ms. Munguia, you're the attorney on this case?
Yes, the defense attorney.
Okay.
Welcome back, Dr. Devin Williams. Shall we get started?
Yes, please.
Can you please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Devin Williams, Williams.
What is your current occupation?
I lead toxicology research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer. Currently, I'm the outgoing chair of the company's ethics committee as well.
And what do you do at Lush?
Well, primarily, I'm a research toxicologist by training. My work is to understand how biological systems respond to environmental interventions, whether that is alcohol and neurochemical pathways or simply inorganic compounds in agriculture enhancing products. I also research test results to determine the effects of potentially toxic chemical agents using biomolecular markers. Essentially, my job is to tell if a substance is going to harm the average human and how to neutralize that harm in the bud.
And how long have you been with Lush Fertilizer?
I've led the toxicology labs for 7 years, but I've been with Lush for 12.
And do you have any degrees?
I have a number of toxicology certifications, namely in Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah. I received my bachelor's degree in toxicology at the University of Utah, my master's of science in forensic toxicology, and a PhD in pharmacology and toxicology at the Colorado State University.
And have you ever made any publications?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor, I am tendering Dr. Devin Williams as an expert witness in the field of toxicology.
Any objection by the plaintiff?
No objection, Your Honor.
Court will recognize Dr. Williams as such.
May I continue, Your Honor?
You may proceed.
Can you tell the jury when you first had to deal with Drufo?
It was when I first started working for Lush. About 50% of the original development team had moved on to other ventures outside of the company. My job was to fill in the role as a technician.
Objection, Your Honor.
Was beginning to impact the
Objection, Your Honor.
Hold on just 1 second. Yes. You're
I'm sorry. I'm objecting on the grounds of 5.1.2 again, as witnesses are not permitted to read or directly quote their witness statements.
Okay. Do you wish to respond to that, Ms. Munguia?
Yes, Your Honor. I can assure you that my witness, Ms. Anthony, is not reading her affidavit directly. She is just going by mere memory.
Okay.
Your Honor, if I may respond briefly.
Yeah.
Rule 5.1.2 does state that they cannot quote their affidavits verbatim, as this witness is quoting the lines of their affidavit on lines 23 and 24.
Well, Ms. Mungia, do you wish to respond?
May I have a moment to confer with co-counsel?
You may.
All right, I am back, Your Honor. Miss Doctor, okay, just making sure you were back as well. I'm willing to rephrase my question as my witness will rephrase their answer.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you. When did you first have to deal with Drufo?
As I stated before, when I started working for the company, it was why they hired me.
And while working at Lush, have you ever had a promotion?
Yes, I was promoted to lead labs.
Can you tell the jury what fertilizers do?
Why, yes. Fertilizers, to put it simply, enhance the growth of plants. They either do that by adding nutrients or making the effectiveness of the soil better. This is done by modifying the water content and improving aeration. These both affect the environmental balancers and are an essential component of any fertilizer.
And how does Drufo connect to your last statement?
I would say that Drufo has significant impacts in both of those derivatives that I mentioned and is significantly better than most fertilizers that I have any knowledge of.
And what was the main goal with Drufo?
The company wanted to develop a generation of fertilizer that did not worsen the already horrible environmental situation of the earth. We wanted to not contribute to the overall nitrate pollution, and we believe that we did so.
And what is your expert opinion on Drufo?
I believe that...
Objection, Your Honor. This is outside the scope of this expert's opinions. Is there an expert in toxicology, not Drufo?
Do you wish to respond, Ms. Mungia?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Williams does work for Lush Fertilizer and was on the development team and the research team that made up Drufo. So Dr. Williams does have knowledge of it and has been entered in as an expert and can give her opinion on this matter.
Did you wish to make any further clarification on your objection, Ms. Yap?
Yes, Your Honor. This witness was not qualified in the area of Drufo. They were simply qualified in the area of toxicology. They are different things, Your Honor.
All right, well, I'm going to find that the area of toxicology would encompass the ability to address the effect of chemicals on the body, so I'm going to overrule the objection. You may proceed, Ms. Mungia, or answer as the case may be, Doctor.
Would you like me to ask the question, Dr. Williams?
Yes, I would appreciate that.
Of course. What is your expert opinion on Drufo?
My expert opinion on Drufo is quite simply that I don't believe it causes Drufo non-Hodgkin's lymphoma directly.
Were you aware that Drufo is banned in France?
Yes, I was. Yet there's more to that, I would say, than people know the situation of.
And can you tell the jury more about that?
It is banned in the European Union and not simply France. However, I must say that this ban is not based on concerns over cancer risks, but once again under that environmental concern that we all hold very dearly. It is called the European Union's Nitrate Directive, and no new fertilizer may be used that may have more than minute nitrate accumulation, and that's essentially why they banned it.
And what does the US do?
The US Department of Agriculture does not follow the example of the European Union. They do their own research.
What has Lush been doing about this issue?
My department and I are finalizing a study that we expect will show that Drufo-based products in a real life situation and not simply in a lab will lead to overall just a better environment and less eutrophication.
Now moving forward, have you looked over Dr. Casey Rogers' study on Drufo?
I have.
And what did you think of the study?
I would say that it doesn't have very much scientific grounding.
Can you talk more about that?
Dr. Rogers' study was not peer-reviewed. That's one of my large concerns. I understand that he has had difficulties with putting it through the legislation process, yet that still remains a large concern and a very big blind spot in his case.
Is there a connection between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
No, Drufo has not been connected in any legitimate way.
Did Drufo cause Dakota Weir's disease?
I'm confident.
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of personal knowledge.
Gia, is yours to respond?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Williams has been entered in under Rule 702 to be an expert witness. So therefore, Dr. Williams can give her expert opinion on this as it is related to toxicology.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
This expert witness has no idea whether Drufo gave Dakota their illness or not. This expert can't give their opinion about toxicology, but this isn't within the field of toxicology whether or not Drufo gave Dakota her illness or not.
So despite her expertise, I am going to find that there's insufficient foundation that she would know the answer to that specific question in regard to Dakota in this case. So I'm going to sustain the objection.
That is all, Your Honor.
All right, any cross-exam?
Yes, Your Honor. And I'd just like to confirm that my timekeepers are ready.
I know they've been actively keeping time because we've been seeing that. All right.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you.
You may proceed.
Dr. Williams, you work for Lush, don't you?
Yes.
And you have other sources of income, correct?
Yes, I do as a researcher.
But Lush Fertilizer chose you to come testify about the possible toxicity of Drufo today, yes?
They believed in my expertise.
But one of the reasons they chose you was because you've worked for Lush for a long time, correct?
Well, it's hard for me to say that as the person involved, but you could draw that conclusion.
I'm sorry, was that a yes?
A tentative yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk more about that employment at Lush. When you were first hired, you were hired as a technician, is that correct?
Yes.
And your job as a technician was to work in the lab and help them catch up on any work they were behind on, is that right?
Yes, that was what I was employed to do.
Okay, thank you. When you were hired at Lush, you say that roughly 50% of the original development team for Drufo had left, right?
Yes, they saw other ventures.
Thank you. 50% is a pretty significant number of individuals who had started the study, right?
I would say so, yes.
A pretty big part of the team?
Yes.
So let's back up a little bit. As a result of the Lush team struggling with timeliness, you were promoted relatively quickly to actually lead the labs from the technician. Is that right?
Yes, as a result of the development slowing and lagging.
Okay, thank you. That's a pretty big promotion, right?
I would say so.
It was a pretty significant jump, yeah?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to Drufo, you spent a pretty long time talking in your direct about how great Drufo is, correct?
Well, not in those words. I believe it is a new fertilizer that will prove to be better than the fertilizers that we currently expose the environment to.
Okay, thank you. But you did talk about how amazing Drufo is for the environment.
Yes, I believe research has shown that.
Thank
We are
you.
current- and others.
But, oh, I'm sorry. Drufo is banned in the EU though, correct?
Yes, but not for cancer-related causes.
Because of the nitrate accumulation.
Yes.
So in order to continue selling Lush products in the EU, you took Drufo out of them. Am I right on that?
Yes, because we wanted to bring our product to the most people possible, even if we couldn't utilize our newest developmental achievement.
Thank you. That's okay. But taking Drufo out of Lush products made it slightly bad for the environment, right?
Yes, but we didn't have very much of an option on this, unfortunately. We were working
Oh, I'm
on
sorry.
an issue to further it.
But you did it because it was just easier, right?
As a company, we don't have the ability to change a European-wide ban, I'm afraid.
I'm sorry, was that a yes on that previous question?
Objection, speculation.
Which, the one about yes or the question before that?
Right before she answered yes, so the last statement, yeah, due to lack of personal knowledge, because Dr. Devin Williams does not make the major decisions on that statement that was, or the question that she was asked.
Do you wish to respond, Ms. Yet?
Your Honor, I just simply asked Dr. Devin Williams if it was just easier for the company to make that decision. And seeing as Dr. Williams has worked for the company for a significant amount of time and were there when they made that decision, they would have personal knowledge.
I'm going to overrule the objection. You may
Thank
proceed.
I'll re-ask my previous question because it was just easier, yes?
Well, as a company, we can't change a European-wide ban.
I'm sorry, can you just answer with a yes or no? It was just easier?
I feel like that would put the person I'm representing in a bad light, which is rendered unfairly. So I would prefer to be able to explain myself at this time.
Your Honor, this witness is avoiding my question. Permission to treat them as a hostile witness for the time being?
Judge answered.
Ms. Mangia?
Asked and answered. Opposing counsel has asked this question multiple times, and my client, or my witness, I apologize, has answered this.
Your Honor, if I may respond.
You may.
The witness has not yet answered my question.
So we got kind of a compound objection going on here. So with regard to your request to treat the witness as a hostile witness, Ms. Yet, for the moment, I'm going to deny that. Ms. Mangia, with regard to your objection, I guess the basis for Ms. Yet's request is due to your witness's failure to answer the question directly. So I'm going to overrule your objection as to asked and answered. I'm going to allow Ms. Yet to ask the question again. And doctor, if it can be answered yes or no, you need to answer as such. So with that instruction, you may proceed, Ms. Yet.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, yes or no? It was just easier to take a Drufo out of Lush products to continue selling them in the EU.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on. Did you ever hear about the possibility of baking Drufo?
Vaguely.
Okay. Did you hear Blake Doncourt testify earlier here in court today?
Yes.
And you heard Blake talk about Drufo, right?
Yes.
But Blake never asked your opinion on it, did they?
Not particularly.
They never even brought it to your attention.
No.
Now, let's backtrack just a little bit. You're an employee of Lush, correct?
Yes.
A paid employee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you work for Blake Doncourt, don't you?
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Any redirect, Ms. Mangia?
May I have a moment to confer with my co-counsel?
You may. I think you're pretty time limited, but
May I check in on what the time is?
yes. There you go.
Thank you. Just give me one moment, please.
Okay.
All righty. Oh, my apologies. We're all set now. Sorry. Dr. Williams, do you hold any title to make any executive decisions at Lush?
No, I do not.
Thank you. That is all, Your Honor.
And any recross?
No recross, Your Honor.
All right. So then we need to proceed into closing arguments. And for the plaintiff, let me see if I got this right in our introductions early on here. I think that's going to be Miss Yet. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And then for closings on the defense, that's going to be Ms. Munguia. So are you ready to proceed, Ms. Yet?
Yes, Your Honor. And I'd like to just double check that my timekeepers are ready.
Of course.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff asks to save any remaining time for rebuttal.
All right. And Ms. Munguia, do you wish to make a closing statement?
Yes, but I believe that opposing counsel is going first, if I'm correct.
They're reserving their time.
Oh, Your Honor, I'm sorry. I just want to reserve any remaining time for rebuttal, not all of it.
I was not clear on that, but
I'm so sorry.
The strategy I've seen before, actually. So you may proceed.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Profits over people. Ladies and gentlemen, today you have heard the case of Dakota Wires versus Lush Fertilizer. You have seen for yourselves that Lush is at fault for Dakota's terminal illness. Lush has shown you today that they simply ignored the warnings and the worries that were presented to them about their so-called revolutionary product, Drufo. They had every opportunity to make this product safer and to keep people more secure, yet didn't. They simply couldn't care less about the people who supported them and their company. Blake Doncourt, the founder of Lush, was focused on the profits of the company rather than the people. This selfish, money-hungry CEO of Lush simply didn't care about the claims of scientists, simply dismissing them. Blake would rather waste your time boasting about the environmental awards than addressing the flaws and the faults of their company. Skylar Wires, a beat journalist and a self-taught researcher with no college degree, training in agritech, or formal education, this witness has simply brought no accurate or noteworthy information to you today. The twin of Dakota cares less about her than they do their job and being paid. Skylar is more focused on making a profit than caring about their own twin. Devin Williams, who works for Lush themselves, they are a paid employee. They have an obvious financial bias in this case, and their job here today is to make money for Lush. Devin and their money-focused mindset led them to choose profits over people. They would rather you focus on nitrate removal of their product to justify the company's environmental label while killing people, ladies and gentlemen. I would now like to direct your attention to jury instruction number 3. Please read along silently with me as I read aloud. It quotes, if a manufacturer of a product knows or in the exercise of reasonable care should know that, 1, the use of the product may be harmful or injurious to a user, and 2, that the risk of harm or injury is not obvious to a reasonable user, then the manufacturer must use reasonable care to warn the user of the risk of harm or injury if a reasonably careful person would under the same or similar circumstances. The failure to do so is negligence. Ladies and gentlemen, Lush Fertilizer was negligent. They purposefully chose to put profits over people. Blake Doncourt neglected the allegations of Carson and other scientists who expressed their concerns about the dangers of Drufo. Blake made the catastrophic and destructive decision to not bake Drufo, which resulted in detrimental consequences. Blake Doncourt wanted to make a profit, not protect people. Blake would rather save a quick buck than save Dakota. Blame Blake Doncourt, ladies and gentlemen. Today, you were presented with rock-hard evidence that Drufo is dangerous. So what makes it acceptable to be put on the market and sold to at-risk and vulnerable people? Dakota Wires had their life flipped upside down and their dreams torn down by this thoughtless company who puts profits over people. I ask that you find in favor of Dakota Wires, who is asking $15 million in damages against Lush Fertilizer. Lush Fertilizer, who gave Dakota this horrible illness, and it's time that Lush takes responsibility for putting profits over people. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Munguia, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may.
I would just like to make sure that the timekeepers are ready.
Sure.
Thank you. A careless consumer can cause cancer. You may have just heard that this might be about the profits for us, but this is not about the money whatsoever. Lush Fertilizer has proved today that they are a safe, responsible company. Lush Fertilizer did produce a fertilizer product. This was Drufo, but Lush did not breach their duty, as Lush has been found to be safe, and it was a consumer at fault. As we are all saddened by the diagnosis of Mrs. Weirs, we ask you, the jury, to see that Lush was in fact not negligent and took proper precautions when manufacturing this product, and find that Lush was not responsible for the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that Mrs. Weirs has. Today, my team and I brought in multiple witnesses to prove why Drufo is a safe product, and it was at the hands of a careless consumer. Today was about the money, and that's all this case is about. Is collecting money due to a careless consumer who put herself at risk and ignored the instructions that Lush put out. You first heard from Blake Doncourt, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer, who testified on behalf of Lush's research and development team, who had done extensive research and testing before putting their products on the market. You then heard from Skylar Weirs, who testified today that Drufo is helpful to the environment. Mr. Weirs talked about how Drufo is an effective pesticide, which helps Lush Fertilizer to not add any other pesticides that are found in other products. Mr. Weirs stated that there is much more of a causal link between cancer and other pesticides than Drufo. Mr. Weirs said today that Drufo is more likely to protect the consumers by eliminating exposure to any other recognized pesticides. Finally, you heard from Dr. Devin Williams, who talked about Drufo being banned in France, but gave reasoning behind it. This ban is not based on concerns over cancer risks. The European Union will not let out fertilizer that uses nitrates. Yet, yes, Drufo does contain nitrogen, but Drufo works on reducing the amount of nitrates that are accumulated under real-world conditions. On the plaintiff's side, you heard from Carson Durst, who used to work for Lush Fertilizer, and how she may have a vendetta against Lush since they are currently working for Lush's competitor. You then heard from Dr. Casey Rogers, who has a financial bias on the outcome of this case. So therefore, he will be more lenient on the plaintiff's side. Our own doctor even talked about how Dr. Rogers' study was biased and had zero peer review, and how their career has been focused on finding harmful effects caused by chemical agents. And this shows by itself how biased Dr. Rogers is. Finally, you heard from Dakota Weirs, who was the careless consumer at hand. Mrs. Weirs admitted that their boss told them to cover their face when working with chemicals and to wear long sleeve pants and gloves when working with fertilizer, because one knows when working with any chemicals to be cautious around it. But Mrs. Weirs admitted that she did not wear any of these clothing articles and would not wear a face covering. They stated in their affidavit, but sometimes it was just too hot and the wind felt so good. This is a careless consumer. With all this to be considered, my team has proved that Lush Fertilizer Incorporation was not responsible for the diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that Dakota Weirs has developed. We ask you, the jury, to take a look at the evidence that this was common sense to cover up and be cautious around chemicals. This is not Lush's fault. This was a consumer at fault. It was a careless consumer who is here for the money. If you do find that we have failed to prove this today, we ask you, the jury, to award the lowest amount possible today. It has been a pleasure to appear before you in this important case. My team and I appreciate your attention throughout this matter, and we thank you for listening to both sides equally, as you promised you would.
Thank you. And do you wish to present any rebuttal close, Ms.? Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor. Can I get a quick time check?
Sure. There you go. You ready?
Yeah, thank you.
You may proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we as the plaintiff representing Dakota Wires have proven to you beyond the preponderance of the evidence today that Lush Fertilizer was negligent. You heard today that the CEO of Lush couldn't even remember enough about his company that he couldn't tell you for sure if baking Drufo would get rid of any risks. Blake also immediately admitted to needing the money that would be used for baking for other reasons. Skylar Wires and Blake Doncourt both had to be refreshed of their prior witness statements as they couldn't remember basic information that they were called to testify here today in. Careless companies cause cancer, not careless consumers. Careless companies like Lush Fertilizer, the carelessness of Blake Doncourt, the carelessness of Dr. Devin Williams, not the carelessness of a poor 14-year-old girl. This bright, smart, talented young adult, Dakota Wires, who had their life ruined. It wasn't her responsibility. It was the carelessness of the company. Blame Lush Fertilizer, this careless company that causes cancer. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm sure we can do like the emoji clapping, but it's not quite as impactful if you're not sitting with everybody present. So, all right. So just to make sure I am correct about the way we proceed from here, a couple things. First of all, I think we wanted to give just a brief amount of time to allow the jurors to make some comments. And so that is my understanding. Is that correct? I think probably who I'm looking for is from the who's ever managing our, I'm not even sure that we have the same person running our meeting at this point. All right, well, I'm going to proceed with that in mind and just make a couple quick comments here. First of all, my name is Tom Lynch. I'm a county court judge. I've been in that role for just over 11 years, and I'm currently down in Loveland. So I'm at the Loveland County Courthouse. And as such, I obviously preside over a number of different trials in any given year. With regard to just a judge's thoughts on some things here. First of all, with regard to objections, my preference is that you state the objection when you make it. So for example, if it's going to be a relevance objection, I prefer that you would say objection relevance. And if you're cautious, even go on into why you don't think it's relevant, because that kind of cuts a little bit of that back and forth in terms of identifying the issue for the court and the court being able to rule on it. With regard to objections in general, I noticed that a couple of you would be doing real well, like in your direct examination, there'd be an objection and it would throw you off a little bit. And that's not uncommon outside of Zoom either. I mean, that happens in the real world. And, but you know, you need to be able to just not let those throw you off. Be ready for an objection. If it's sustained, then just move on. If it's overruled, keep going with what you were asking and just don't let it slow you down. Just kind of roll with it and be ready for it. Be anticipating that it's going to happen. Let's talk about speculation. I think the best way I can really demonstrate speculation is, well, it's a current subject. So I wrote down, when is COVID going away? That's something that we'd all like to know, but I think we would all acknowledge that at this point it would be guessing, which is a kind of a synonym for speculation, right? So if you're asking somebody to guess about the answer to your question, then that's a good speculation objection. With regard to lack of foundation, let's talk a little bit about that, what that is. It's basically, what is this evidence? And does this witness know anything? Or I guess what we'll say is enough about it. So if you ask somebody, what's the 0 to 60 speed of the new Mustang, right? You would have to first ask them, do you know anything about cars, right? So that would be laying the foundation for that specific question. So be mindful that you're trying to establish whether or not that witness knows enough about the question that's being objected to. Relevance is evidence that makes an element more or less likely. And, that's why that's one that can be, there's a fair amount of subjectivity to that, because it can be argued in a number of ways that so many things could do that. But there are some, it becomes more apparent when you are asked, or opposing counsel are asking questions about things that really don't relate to what is going on. So that, for example, that's why I sustain the objection on gambling. And then we've got refresh recollection. And so that didn't come up, but kind of did. And it's kind of a fun thing, really, that our rules of evidence allow for the refreshing of one's recollection. And it can be done in any way. So an example I just came up with here is, I said, what if a witness had previously stated, so you knew they made a previous statement where they said, when they entered the room, it smelled like pickles. And you were asking them a question about what they saw in the room, and they said, I don't remember. And you went forward with a jar of dill pickles, and they said, oh, I remember, I smelled pickles. And I saw, you may be hoping for something more than just dill pickles. But the point is that anything can be used to refresh someone's recollection. What's most often used is a statement that they made or written down. So I just wanted to kind of hit a couple things real quick. And with that, I'll let the jurors. And thank you all for your time and hard work here today.
I don't have too much to add, Your Honor, other than to say good job, everybody. I think one of the things that I always try to encourage people to do is, one thing that's fun to do about being a lawyer is to get to have those kind of arguments and have those kind of back and forth moments, which is great. But I also think it's good to keep in mind that there ought to be a reason, right? When you're making those objections, or when you're having a dispute with somebody, try to keep in mind sort of the forest for the trees. What are you ultimately trying to accomplish? If what you're trying to accomplish is just, sort of getting under somebody's skin, I don't know that that's a great reason to make an objection or make an argument. If the point is this evidence is bad and it's going to sway the jury in a way that they shouldn't be swayed, I think that's a great reason to make an objection. So I think it's good to just keep in mind what is the ultimate goal of your objection. But other than that, you guys do a good job. Well done. Thank you.
I would echo that as well. I mean, I think you all did an excellent job, and it was it was fun watching you develop the facts on this one. Just a couple kind of technique things. Whenever, particularly on a redirect, that's kind of your opportunity for precision, right? It's your chance to come back and make what the best hit you can make to the jury at that point in time. So sometimes you don't want to necessarily ask questions that are not so maybe pertinent and direct to where you want to go. Even on cross, sometimes I've heard old tactics instructors say that on cross you use a rifle, not a scattergun, right? You want to go in and hit those points that you want to hit, not necessarily revisit something that you really don't care about, but really hit on the points they're going to be key to your case. And there should be a couple just seriously like finesse type comments on practice, but I think you did a great job.
Hey guys, my name is Brian Connors. I was a public defender for 26 years, most of those in Greeley, although from Gunnison to Julesburg. And you guys, here's the headline story. The headline story is, you guys did a great job. You guys deserve enormous credit for taking this on because this is a lot of preparation, okay? So compared to your classmates who are listening to Led Zeppelin in the basement while vaping, okay, you guys are putting time in, learning some really impactful, important stuff, which I hope will serve you and cause you to pursue this either further on in high school or in college or beyond. So good for you guys. Good for the witnesses who, I know it's not as much fun to be the witness. It's less fun, probably the underclassmen or the witnesses. I think is usually how this goes. Good for you guys. If you guys are the witnesses, I hope you guys are the lawyers and we see you next year as lawyers. So good for you. You guys all did a great job. You had themes. You asked one fact per question, leading questions on cross, which is something that, we waterboard baby lawyers, baby public defenders and baby DAs. Sometimes they don't catch on to that for 6 to 12 months. I'm sure Judge Lynch would confirm that. You guys all get that. You did a great job. And I hope you guys have a great time tomorrow. So thanks for all your work.
My name is Elizabeth Ray, and I am a third-year law student at Mitchell Hamlin in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm not an attorney, but I have been in your position before. I competed both in high school and in the collegiate level mock trial. So this was absolutely fun to be on the other side and not have to be sweating up a storm, worrying about what my witness is going to say. I had just a couple of things. One, kind of going off of what Kathy's point was, be really cognizant of the last questions that you're asking. I think there was one person that ended off on something like the last question was about being fired, and that was on their direct. So just think about those. Also, there was a couple times where I thought, at least once, I thought, I don't think a redirect was necessary for this witness. I think if they're a very strong witness and they're answering the questions really well and kind of, I don't know a better word, if they're kind of slithering around their cross-examination attorney, I don't think they always need a redirect. And my biggest pet peeve in this is using notes. And I know it's hard because on Zoom it's so easy. But the worst, I think, is on the closing, because if you write it ahead of time, you don't necessarily know what's going to be said throughout the whole trial. And I think you lose opportunities to bring up the points where certain witnesses were really weak or really strong. I did like, let's see, I think this would have been the plaintiff side. They brought up the careless company. They kind of twisted the defense. I think that was an opportunity where it could have been done on the defense side, where they could have said, instead of profits over people, you could have twisted it to saying, all the profit is going to this one person. So that's just something to keep in mind. Maybe try to save at least a minute where you don't have something pre-written. And especially then too, when you're listening to openings, listen for those themes and see if you can twist it. It's not always possible, and it can be really difficult, but I think that's a way to just kind of make your closing shine just a little bit brighter. But other than that, you all did a fantastic job.
And I think we'd all agree that it's harder by Zoom. So I'll leave it at that. So hopefully next year we'll get to see you all in person. Now, I think procedurally, and I'm not positive about this, but my understanding is, Ms. Sharma, that what we're going to do is we're going to let the people that were in the competition, we'll let them out, and then we just wanted to check with the jurors before we let them go to make sure that their scoring sheets are complete. Is that correct? I'm sure Ms. Sharma's there because, all right, well, not here. She might be managing another one of these. So just to make sure, oh, there she is. Yeah, Are we going to let all the competitors go at this time? And then we just wanted to double check with the jurors before we let them go to make sure that their scoring sheets are done.
Yes, people can be released now. For the scores, just make sure you hit submit. And if you've done that, you're finished for the day. As for all the participants, they're also done for the day. The next pairing will be posted on the site probably later tonight, if not for sure early in the morning.
Okay, fantastic. And because we have 4 jurors, I'm not supposed to score, correct?
You're not.
Okay, good. Tough job for you guys. All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. All right.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.